Hello, we would like to thank everyone for coming to the Noun Conference. This session is called It's Who You Know, Networking versus Informational Interviewing. The speaker is going to be Vanessa George. She has a short bio that's going to be in your packets or folders that you can read about her. I would like to introduce her, but also there's evaluations on your table, so if you can please fill those out at the end and just leave them on your table and we'll pick them up. Now I'll introduce Vanessa George. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherie. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, no. You can do better than that. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. Wonderful. So happy to see all of you here today. And I am delighted and very honored to be able to stand here and share with you and have a wonderful, engaging workshop with you this morning on networking versus informational interviewing. Now, I know that on a Thursday morning, the one thing you really are excited about is sitting in here and talking about how you can learn to interview. I know that's just riveting, right? Really exciting. But the truth is, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. And my hope and my aspiration is that you will get to know each other, if you don't already, that you'll have the opportunity to learn some tools and some techniques that will help you in your career, whatever that may be, here at Berkeley or elsewhere. And that you will also learn some strategies that you can use for the rest of your career, because this workshop is about career development and career management. And in my role at University of San Francisco, where I work with our graduate students in the School of Management, I teach them about career management. You know, I teach students and also clients that I work with about the importance of developing your career over the course of your life, developing strategies, really thinking about how you can manage your career as Linda Williams talked about this morning. It's not just about trying to figure out how to find another job, right? It's about trying to think about where you want to go and how you're going to get there strategically, because this is your life, right? It's up to you, and you get to manage it, and you get to direct it. You're the conductor of your life, and that's incredibly powerful. So today, my role is to provide you with a few tips that will help you in that process. And I encourage you, as you're going through my workshop today, and as you're going through the conference today, to take everything in and think about how it can help you down the road. I also want to encourage you to make sure, if you haven't had the chance, to go upstairs in the main building. I've lost track of where we are. Going to go upstairs to the mezzanine and take an opportunity to talk to the representatives from the different departments here in the Career Exploration Fair. They're here, and they're here to talk with you and share with you information about opportunities. So I do encourage you to do that, okay? So let's get going. So, networking, interviewing, the horror. I have literally had people tell me they'd rather go to the dentist than get out there and network, or, God forbid, go out and actually do an informational, or even worse, a real interview. So I want to see, show of hands, how many of you love networking and love getting out there and interviewing? Yeah, okay, the whole room, sure. It's more like maybe like a quarter of the room. But that's okay. That's normal, and that's typical. But here's the truth. It doesn't have to hurt, right? You shouldn't revere or think about root canal as being more enjoyable than going out and saying hello to someone, whether it's here at a conference like today, or perhaps, just in the cafeteria or whatever here at Berkeley. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be a dreaded exercise. It can be fun. It can be engaging. And you might actually have a good time meeting people and learning more about what they do. So let's talk a little bit about what you can get, or what you can accomplish, or what you can learn as you go about networking and engaging in informational interviews. And I will define what those mean in a minute. But at the high level, two key things. The people that you meet along the way as you're out there exploring and talking to people can serve a variety of roles in your life. It's not just go out and find some willing victim who will get you a job, right? That's not what it's about. It's about thinking about creating a network, a supportive network of people who can provide information, who can share tips, who can guide you, coach you. Perhaps they might be a mentor. Perhaps they might be what we call an ally. Perhaps they might be what we call a sponsor. Now, just a quick question for any of you. We don't have a mic to run around, but that's okay. The acoustics are really good, so I think I'll be able to hear you. Does anybody know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? Does anybody know what that difference is? No? No brave? Yes? A sponsor will pay for it. Okay, that's one approach. Anybody else? I commend you. Yes.
I think a sponsor might be very specific in helping you to reach a specific goal, whereas a mentor is more of an advisor.
Exactly. Very, very close. A mentor is more of an advisor, whereas a sponsor can help you accomplish a particular goal. Very, very close. In fact, I'll take it one step further. So a mentor can work with you to give you insight on where you're going, what you're doing well. Perhaps it might be someone providing you with guidance on your job, on your work product, on how to improve your skills. So they serve an advisory role. They're designed to help you navigate and help you sort of point you in the right direction, or help you course correct when things are really not going very well. Okay. A sponsor, on the other hand, is someone who can help put your name forward, recommend you to a particular opportunity, who has influence. It's very important to understand that. A mentor can be helpful, but they may not necessarily have influence. A sponsor is someone who can pick up the phone and say, Kate, I have heard about a wonderful opportunity. And I know the person over in that department who would be in a position to talk to you about it. Would you be interested? And Kate says, sure. The sponsor picks up the phone and says, hi, Anne, I have a protege, colleague that I've been working with who's very bright, very accomplished, has done some tremendous work, and I know that you have an opportunity to do X, Y, Z. I really suggest that you talk to her. She would be the right fit for your role. That person has influence, and Anne is going to listen to that person, and should Kate apply, Kate will get that interview. It's very powerful. One of the interesting findings that we've come across in our research on career development is that we, as people at this point, have gotten better at finding mentors, but we have not necessarily learned how to find and connect with sponsors. And that's where networking comes into play. It's putting yourself out there to get to know people who may be at a higher level than you. It can be a little scary. Maybe a former supervisor, it could be someone who's chairing a cross-departmental task force that you may be on, who has the opportunity to see you, see your work, figure out how well you can produce, how well you can perform, and would be willing to put in a good word for you with someone who is influential. So as you think about your goals for networking, you want to be thinking not just about finding friends, finding allies, coaches, mentors. You want to be thinking about sponsors, people who can really help move your career to the next level. And the benefits for networking and doing informational interviews are varied. It can be learning more information about a particular role. It can be helping you support your career advancement, exposing you to new opportunities, et cetera, and so forth. So there are tremendous benefits to networking and informational interviewing. Then there's a certain way that I want to help you think about, what's the difference between the two? You want to think about it as a funnel. What we mean by a funnel is, imagine you're just, you're pouring information into like a sieve. right? But you're gonna start with a lot at the top, and then it's going to slowly filter down to fewer and fewer and fewer. In this case, we're talking about people. So at the top of the funnel is networking. That's where you're going out and you're just sharing with people in a casual way. You know, it's not an interview, it's not formal. You're just meeting people, you're talking to people, you're introducing yourself, and you're sharing your interests and your goals and your aspirations in a very organic, very natural way, non-pushy, non-sort of, grabby. It's just, hi, my name is, who are you, what do you do, here's what I do, and you're sharing as appropriate your interests. You're meeting lots of people that way. Your goal is to find people who might be interesting and could be a potential contact for you, or that you may be able to help. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But with networking, you're reaching out to as many people as possible in a very natural, normal, everyday kind of way. Okay? Informational interviewing, fewer people. What happens is once you've identified people through your networking activities, you may decide, I want to talk to them more because they are doing something that's really interesting to me, and I want to learn about it. I want to learn how they got where they are. I want to figure out, is this something I might want to do? So then you're having an informational interview with that person where you're driving that discussion. You are the one asking them for their time to learn about what they do, and it's a fun activity. It's not a grilling session. You are really there to gather information. Then, after you have done that, perhaps that person says, I suggest you apply for a position in our company. I'm going to put your name forward, or it may just be that they refer you to somebody else who then suggests to apply if you wish. Now you have fewer people to talk to. That's the formal interviewing process. So you see, you've started from this very big group of people, and you've narrowed it down slowly. There are different stages, and each of those stages have different functions. So you don't go into networking thinking, oh, I have to talk to this person, and it's going to be grueling and terrible, and all I really want is a job. You're really at the networking stage. You're just starting out thinking about, who are they? What do we have in common? And you're moving from there. So, questions right now on this process? So, it's okay. So I've just kind of recapped it here. And by the way, this presentation will be posted after the session, so you can take notes if you like, but you will get a full copy of the presentation, so not to worry. So you want to think about each stage in terms of a question. Networking is asking the question. Imagine you're asking someone else. I'm asking Seth. I'm saying, so Seth, who do you know in finance? I'm really interested in going into finance. I don't really know anybody over there. Do you know anyone who might be working in finance that I could just talk to, learn a little bit more about? And again, organic, natural conversation. Whatever your goal is, whatever your interests are, who do you know? That's the question you want to keep in mind as you're networking. Then, when the time comes, and you've moved on to an informational interview, that's when you're thinking about asking someone, what do you do? Tell me more. I'd love to learn. How did you get into this role? That's the primary question, right? Very different. Formal interview, of course, which we're not going to cover today, but that is where you really get into discussions around the company's interviewing you, but you're asking them, what are you looking for? How can I help your company? How can I make a tremendous contribution to whatever your need is? So 3 different stages. We're going to focus on networking and informational interviewing today. And as I go along, please feel free to ask questions. I know it's a big room, but again, I can kind of hear you pretty well, so we're going to go ahead and have fun. So here's the thing. I know many of you might be thinking, yeah, but it's just not a whole lot of fun to get out there and put myself out there. But if your goal is success, if your goal is upward mobility, if your goal is simply broadening your work opportunities, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the #1 person. Maybe that's not your goal. Maybe you just want to learn a little bit more, or you want to expand a little bit more. But you can't get there if you put yourself in a box, right? You can't get there if you are afraid to talk to people or shy about what they might think about you, or worried that you won't say the right thing. Any of those type of thoughts, which are perfectly normal and valid, and all have them, but they're not going to get you to where you want to go. So I'm going to invite you today to really push yourself out. If you have a box in your head, push yourself out of that box and think about how can you make just one step today. Just one. I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel or do anything. Just take one positive step today to help move you forward. All right? Can you all commit to that? I want to see a show of hands saying, yes, I can do that. Yeah, I want to hear it. Yes, I can do that. All right. And it's up to you to decide what that one step is. So I'm not going to force you to make a decision. All right. So let's talk about networking. I'm going to have a little fun right now. So I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself to one person next to you. Your name, your position, your department. And then you're going to ask what we call an open-ended question, which means there's no yes or no answer. Simple. What inspired you to come to the conference today? That's it. And take turns asking and answering that question. You've got 2 minutes. Go ahead. Okay, so just a quick question. When I asked you to introduce yourself, what was the sort of initial thought that ran through your minds? So we're going to use a mic, so in the back. Wait, hold on. Here. No, stand up. But she needs to give you a mic. Yeah, there.
I have a loud mouth. I don't need a mic. So every time it's like introduced, I go, "Ooh, a new person." My mom said I never knew a stranger.
Excellent. What other? I saw another hand go up. Initial thoughts, or any kind of. Was there any anxiety about introducing yourself? And if so, I'd just love to hear what that was. Just a hand. I need a hand because we have to give you a mic. Oh, come on. Thank you. Here you go. Behind you. Right here.
Oh, it's like,
yeah.
Like I'm going to see you.
I'm not a big fan of titles, and so your question of name and then position is, I always sort of think, well, my title doesn't really say what I do or who I am.
Yeah. So it's all about identity and how you want to present yourself to people. Any other quick thoughts, initial impressions about being asked to introduce yourself? Okay, yeah, right here.
Wait, was there somebody behind me?
Yeah, but it's okay. Go ahead.
It's too late. I made you know.
Massive anxiety.
Massive anxiety. Massive anxiety.
The crazy thing is, we work together.
You work together.
And you said start networking, and I'm like, oh my god. And I look over and I'm like, but I know her. I work
Would you already know her?
And it was too much.
You came in the same car.
I'm totally nervous.
You know each other.
It's just not.
It's just this visceral reaction, right? Nothing to do with reality, just totally visceral. That's okay. And imagine, right, you know her. Imagine if I said, go meet Angela. Do you know Angela? You'd be like, oh, God, no. Doesn't have to be that way, though. So what I'm going to do is share with you some easy peasy networking tips, right, to make your life a little bit simpler. Now, I know some of you attended this workshop last year, and you may have or seen it on YouTube. So if you have, great, it's a refresher. If you haven't, you'll hopefully learn something new today. 4 secrets. The first one is, in general, when it comes to networking, and not just introducing yourself, but networking in general, is knowing what it is you are looking for or you need. One of the number one things I hear all the time is that inhibits people from getting out there is they don't really know what it is they want or need or what they're looking for. So how can I tell someone, hi, I'm Vanessa, and I work in career management, and I'm looking to hire a new person. Let's just say that's my need. if I don't know what I'm looking for, how can I possibly tell somebody else, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So the first thing is you've got to figure out what it is you want or need. The beauty of it is you can use networking for that purpose if you explain that you're in an exploration mode. Second thing is learning how to ask for what you want or need. Sometimes we know it's in there, we know exactly what it is we want, but we just can't quite figure out how to get it out of our mouth, right? And then the number 3 is, of course, you have to open your mouth. So you may know what you want, you may have written it down and mastered it in front of your mirror in the morning, but you are still a little bit anxious about opening your mouth and saying something. So number 3 is learning how to get out there, reach out, talk to people. And number 4, which quite honestly is probably the best secret of all of them, it's like the super secret, is being curious. Because when you're curious about other people, it takes the spotlight off of you. And it enables you to open up a little bit more and feel comfortable about sharing what's interesting to you because you're focused on this other person as well. So let's talk about the first one. Writing down your goals. So learning what it is, figuring out what it is you want starts with writing down some ideas of what you're trying to accomplish. So I'd like to ask you all to take out a piece of paper, looks like you already have some, and I'm going to spend not 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to make sure we're on time, but maybe spend a couple minutes writing down some of the goals and dreams from your professional life for the next 3 to 5 years. And if that's just way too long a time horizon, maybe it's the next 1 to 2 years. So I'd like you to just jot down some ideas of what is it you think you might want. Does everybody have at least one goal written? Yeah? Fantastic. Because next, we're going to talk about how you actually communicate that goal. Now, by show of hands, how many of you have worked on an elevator pitch in the past, either in this session or independently? Okay. How many of you know what an elevator pitch is? Get a gauge. Okay, most of you do. So for the maybe handful of you who do not, an elevator pitch, which sounds so interesting, is really just an opportunity for you to share who you are, what your background is, what it is you're looking for in a casual setting like today. So this conference is a perfect opportunity to share what we call elevator pitches. Now, the term comes from the idea that if you were to get into an elevator and you met or you saw someone in the elevator who you've always wanted to meet, or perhaps you've seen them around campus, and you're in this elevator and it's going up for 4 or 5 stories, would you be able to articulately share what you're interested in and why you want to talk to that person in 15 seconds? Would you be able to be concise, on point, make sense? Would you be able to do that in a very short amount of time? And it's a very powerful tool to have in your toolkit, because you want to present yourself positively. You want to be able to communicate an interest or a goal or even a passion, right? It's not always dry. It can be something really exciting that you've always wanted to do, but you were looking for someone who does that thing. And maybe you finally run into somebody and you're like, wow, I've always wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but I didn't know anybody who had actually done it. And now this person's doing it, and I want to talk to them to find out how they did it. But you first have to say hello, because you got to start somewhere, right? So elevator pitch, I'm going to ask you to, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to pick a partner and practice it, but you're not going to have time to write it down first. So I want you to mentally construct first in your mind. Imagine you're saying hi. What's your name? Judy. So I'm saying, hi, Judy. Hi, first of all, hi, what's your name? No. Yeah. Judy. Hi, Judy. My name is Vanessa. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I think this is the first time I've seen you at this conference. I came last year. Did you come last year? Oh, okay, wonderful. So then I would proceed to ask her, so what do you do? And Judy then starts explaining, well, I work in Judy works, she said, I work in the library. What do you do in the library?
Hire about 600 students for the libraries on campus.
So Judy says, I work in the library and I hire about 600 students on campus at the library. And I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. I then explain what I do. So it's a dialogue, right? It's not just blah, you're not just vomiting your whole life onto this person, And so perhaps I might say, so, what brought you to this conference? And this is where Judy might say, well, actually, I'm looking for boom, boom, boom. So it's a dialogue. When you're having a discussion with someone, it can be very brief. You're sharing, it's very natural and very normal. But Judy's got in the back of her mind her goals that she wrote down a minute ago. And so that is essentially how an elevator pitch is. And then she wraps it up by saying, I'm really looking, I'm going to invent this, I'm looking for referrals. For anyone that you might know who's interested in coming to work here in the library, I'm trying to hire students, and we do the normal communication and marketing. But if you know of students in particular who might want to work in the library, I would love to, maybe exchange cards, and we can follow up afterwards. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. So I'm going to ask each of you to pick a partner and practice that little exchange, share your goal, what it is you're looking for, and just get a little bit of experience doing that in a more normal or natural way. So I'll give you guys 2 minutes each. Go. Wonderful. So question for any of you, as you were doing this exercise, how did it feel to have to put your goal out there? The microphone. Yeah, hand, go ahead. Yes. Yeah.
I'm looking for a sponsor. It felt real.
Felt real.
Like I put something down, I'm like, oh, I do have a goal. And now I'm saying it, I'm like, oh no, I have to do it now. I have to reach that goal.
Because you actually told somebody.
Yeah, it's real, yeah.
That can be the scary thing about actually putting it out there in the universe, and sometimes it takes off without you. So, other thoughts? She's coming.
I think what I struggled with was I have like 5 goals written down, and I need to focus on 1 or 2 of those for who I'm talking to, and that was a little difficult to decide, like, okay, who is this person and what goal can I relate to them?
Right. Well, and what'll happen is that'll happen organically. Like as you start talking to the person, it will just come out. I mean, because typically you're not just going to dump all 5 of your goals on some unsuspecting victim. You're going to get to know them, briefly over lunch, for example, like today. And as you're talking and you start making a connection and you start finding out more about that person, you may discover that it would be appropriate to share one of those goals with them. So again, it should be as normal and natural as possible. I think that's one of the things that can be daunting about the whole networking concept, this idea that you're trying to get something out of somebody, but that's not it at all. It's it's an exchange where you're talking to someone in a normal way. You have the goals in the back of your mind just sitting there, and then as you talk to the person, you may discover that, oh, this would be a great time to ask. So, pointing to this table. Sorry, you guys, because you're standing in front of me. But Bisma, this would be a great time to ask Bisma, oh, you work over in the athletic department. My, nephew is interested in coming to Berkeley, and I would love to have him talk to someone about the athletic department. I mean, I just made that up. But you know what I mean? Like, you may have 10 different things in the back of your head. But depending on who you talk to, that will determine what you share in that given moment. Any other thoughts about sharing before I move on? Yes, Andre, over here.
Yeah, for me it was, I want as many people to know what my goals are as I can so that I'm just building that network. And so when there is an opportunity that comes up that is aligned with my goals, then, that person, I know that person already, so. Exactly.
It's like dropping the pebbles in the water and watching the ripples go out. You're just putting it out there, you're just letting people know. I will tell you, the way that I landed at University of San Francisco was just like that. I wasn't actually looking. I happened to be doing a consulting project with someone who worked at a career center in a different university. And I said, I'm sort of contemplating moving into working in a career center at some point. I think that would be really interesting because I had worked in HR for PG&E and, was sort of deciding what my next step might be. And it wasn't focused. I wasn't saying to her, can you hire me at this university? I just said, I think this would be a really interesting opportunity at some point. Not quite sure when yet. I'd like to kind of explore it a little bit more. And then conversation moved on and we worked on other projects together. And then one day she called me and said, hey, guess what? I just heard that there's an opening at University of San Francisco. And I know the director. Would you like me to forward your resume? And all of a sudden there was an opportunity right there. I hadn't even thought about it, but I had put it out there. So that's how that works. So now that you've gotten experience writing down your goals and learning a little bit about how to talk about them, you actually have to talk about them. You've got to get it out of your mouth, or at least out of your inbox. So I encourage you all, if you haven't done so already, set up your LinkedIn profile. You want to be focused on online networking as well as offline networking. Show of hands, how many of you have a LinkedIn profile? Okay, keep the hands up, keep the hands up. Now, put your hand down if you don't have a picture. Okay. Put your hand down if you have less than 100 contacts. So that's kind of the dividing line. Less than 200, put your hand down. All right. That's good. Most of you can do it. So over 200 is sort of that magic number. Anybody have more than 400 contacts? Woo! Give a round of applause. All right. Yes. Yes. Now, here's the thing. I know it may sound like, I could just accept anybody, but that's not really true. You want to accept people into your LinkedIn network who you actually know. I mean, you've actually met. You've seen them eye to eye, or you've been introduced perhaps, through somebody else on LinkedIn or on email. I always say, accept someone into your LinkedIn network if someone mentioned their name later and you recognize that name. Right? Because here's what happens with LinkedIn. And this is my personal philosophy. You don't have to ascribe to this. That's okay. But your LinkedIn connections, your contacts are like currency. They are very valuable. The people in your network, very valuable. That's your what we call social capital. Have you heard that term before? Social capital? So people in your life, that's a very valuable resource. So if someone is connected to you on LinkedIn and you don't know them at all, you have no contacts, you don't know anything about them, they sent you an invitation, you just said, sure, click. And then later they come back to you and say, hey, I see you're connected to, the CEO of Bank of America. Would you introduce me? And you're like, I don't know who you are. You really want to be mindful about who you accept into your circle, or not to use a Google term, but into your network. It's very important because when you recommend someone to somebody, you're basically vouching for them. Think about that. You're saying, yes, I know so-and-so. She's great. I suggest you talk to her. What if you don't really know that person? You've just opened up your network to someone. So I just say, get to know them at least a little bit. Find out a little bit about them before you just universally accept people. So that's my philosophy. Not everybody believes that. That's okay. But that's how I roll. Okay. So, and there's a whole science to how you leverage LinkedIn. There is a workshop on that today. Is that right now? No, I think it's.
LinkedIn 101 is going on right now.
It's
LinkedIn 201 is where if you already have a profile and what to do with it. That's this afternoon.
Wonderful, great. All right, so go to that one because you can't leave this room. Now, in addition to being connected online, you need to be connected offline, obviously. That's why you're here today. So there are a number of strategies that you can use to get out from behind your desk. The number one thing you can do and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I say this all the time, is say hello. Say hi. Say hi to people. I mean, it can be very intimidating sometimes just to say hello, but once you cross that boundary, it gets a little better, trust me. Other strategies up there, like inviting a colleague to lunch, inviting your boss to lunch. Ooh. Ooh, anybody done that? Yeah? You know, it's not unusual, but sometimes it seems a little scary. You can ask to join a cross-department committee, ask to be on a particular task force. Great way to meet people across the university. You can, of course, join professional associations, volunteer. I'm curious to know, and I'm going to ask the, oh, do you have a question? Yes, go ahead.
Inviting your boss to lunch. Like, is that always appropriate? Is there other avenues of doing that? Because sometimes you may not feel comfortable,
right,
or they may not have the time if they're really busy.
There are no always and nevers on this list. These are just suggestions. It all depends on your relationship with your boss, their availability, their time, the dynamics on the team. So you've got to think about all of that, right? Just, you know, be mindful. But if your boss is the type of person who is open to going out with, having lunch with team members, and that feels appropriate, then go ahead. It could be coffee, you know. But the issue is sometimes we don't get to know our managers as people. We just know them as the ones who are paying our salary, right? And so one of the things that happens is when you look at a manager, you see the person who is controlling your day-to-day experience. But we're not always aware of what issues or challenges or pressures they're dealing with. And so sometimes when you get out of the office and you have lunch or coffee, you get to know a little bit more about the scope of their responsibilities, and it gives you insight into why certain decisions may be made. And not all the time, depends on the person, obviously, but it's just one option. I am curious, as each and every one of you has thought about the whole getting out there idea, have any of you used any interesting or creative strategies to meet people, to get to know people, to build your network? And if so, what have you done? We'd just love to hear. I see a hand there.
So one of the things that I've done, because my manager is slowly developing her teams, right? So she's hiring new people on a regular basis. One of the things I've tried to do is do a monthly huddle up. We call it First Fridays Huddle Up. So not only do we get to connect with people we already know, but we get to welcome the newcomers. And then it's going on for like 6 months now, so we're constantly expanding within and without our department. And it's actually turning out very nicely.
Fantastic. Great idea. Others?
Hi, my name is Marco Lindsay. I'm with the High School of Business. Something that I do is I take professors out to lunch. And what I'll do is I'll read one of their papers that they have posted on their CV, send them an email saying that I read it, I was interested in it, I'd like more information on it, and I'll treat them to lunch. And they pretty much go for it. And and for the, a $12 lunch, they'll give you same advice that they're giving Google for $5K an hour. And so,
brilliant.
I mean, it works. So.
Brilliant, fantastic. Another suggestion here.
I have two. The first one I used to do is just leave a candy dish in front of your desk. You'd be surprised how many people will come say hello because they want a piece of candy.
That's true. Yes.
But now that I work with lots of students, you can't do that because it would just put me out of the house and home. So what I did before we moved is my old cubicle, I decorated it. And you'd be surprised how many people would come by and go, wow, that's really nice. I love those flowers, or I really like that picture, though, that sign that says, dessert is stress spelled backwards. It's doing that kind of stuff. And I didn't even know who they are, but the other people within the building who would pass by would, and then they would come back and they would talk to me like I'm their friends. And so it was a really good way of just kind of networking really passively.
Yeah, you like open the door, essentially. Fabulous. I see one more over there.
Hi, my name is Claudia Moreno. So one thing I've kind of been
looking more into sports. It's a basic common ground for a lot of people. So, for example, right now it's the World Cup, and have you seen, yesterday's match? And that kind of brings a conversation starter.
Excellent, excellent. Wonderful suggestions all. And as the day goes by, I encourage you all to, talk to each other to get suggestions about different ways you have expanded your network. All of you have, I'm sure, used strategies, maybe not even thought about it, but just, naturally stumbled upon something that seemed to work for you. Ask each other. Use this day today as an opportunity to broaden your basket of ideas. Embedded in all of this is the idea of asking open-ended questions as people come by or as you meet people and you're out there. It's a great way to break the ice. And so we're not going to practice this because I want to make sure we get to the informational interviewing piece, but there's just an endless number of open-ended questions. If you don't know, if you can't remember what it is, just keep in mind it's a question that doesn't have a yes or no answer. That's the simplest way to think about it. So you could ask someone next to you, what workshops are you planning to attend today? Or what do you think of this conference? Or if you're at work or you're, run into somebody in the cafeteria or whatever, you can ask them, how are things going over in your department, which can open up a whole discussion, Or what kinds of projects are you working on these days? Anything. It doesn't even matter. It's just the idea is to get the conversation going and get you out of that frozen mode, which happens a lot. So we're going to skip this. Key thing, always keep the goals in mind. I like the comment over here. What was your name again? Christina. I like Christina's comment about, I have 5 goals, which one? You can have 10. But keep them in mind because you never know when you might have someone sitting right next to you who is a wonderful person to talk to learn more about whatever it is you're curious about, and have that elevator pitch ready. So I'm going to shift now for the next 20 minutes and talk about informational interviewing. So think of this as a continuum. You've gone out there, you've broadened your network, you've gotten to know people, met all kinds of different people, and as you're going through that funnel, you identify perhaps a few folks that you would really like to talk to more because that person may be able to point you in the direction that you want to go in. But what do? You got to talk to them, right? So your goals are you want to gather information. Maybe you want to explore a new career possibility. You might be looking to dig a little bit deeper about possible options for you in your career path. Or you might want to know about specific details. This is very important because oftentimes when we talk about informational interviewing, there is the assumption that we're talking about a wide-ranging interview where you're asking them 20 questions and about everything about their life. That may not be the case. You may just want to know about one thing, and that's okay. It might be a briefer conversation. So there's no prescription about what the scope is of the conversation. It's up to you. You drive it. But know that this is your tool. Your informational interview is the most powerful tool that you have to make connections with people at a deeper level, get to know them, and hopefully glean the information that you're looking for. So, number of questions on here, but basically, if you were to think about it in the big picture, you're trying to find out more about this person, their role, what do they do? What's it like to be a controller on a day-to-day basis? What's it like to work in fundraising? What kind of skills do I need to do that? How did this person get there? If it's, I put their company, but it could be their department, it could be their unit. You might want to know more about what the culture is like over in that department or that division. You may want to know where are things going and what's the future of that department as to the degree that they know that information. Perhaps you want to know, do I need to go back to school in order to be a director of finance someday? Or perhaps you might want to move into academic affairs or student affairs. Do I need a master's degree? What do I need to do in order to help me in my transition? That person might be able to help you with that. More importantly, you really want to find out what does it take to be successful What kind of skills do I need? Because it's one thing to have this wonderful, lofty idea about doing something. Perhaps you're thinking, I would love to be a program director, over in student affairs. But then you may not realize what it takes on a day-to-day basis, and maybe you might discover, gosh, I don't really like that. It sounds great, but then when I really talk to someone and find out what they do every day, oh God, that sounds horrible. Or, oh, that sounds fantastic. And I had no idea that would be the perfect match for my skills and qualifications. The most important thing, though, I'm going to use this wonderful laser pointer here. This here, it's not about asking for a job. This is an informational discussion, right? So very important to keep that in mind. And it does require some time. You need to sit down and talk to that person. There are a few key things you want to keep in mind as you're planning your informational interview. First of all, who do you target? It could be anyone that you feel is going to provide the kind of information you're looking for. Now, this is a critical difference between networking and informational interviewing. In networking, you're talking to people, you're getting to know them, you're, like at a conference, you're exchanging information. Maybe they might not be able to help you, but maybe you might be able to help them. It's very organic and casual. Informational interview is more structured, right? And you are driving this discussion. This is about you trying to get information, learn about something from this person. So it's directed. It's not casual. So when you're thinking about who to talk to, you have to have a purpose, an objective in mind. You may find them anywhere, right? Through referrals, through LinkedIn, could be in your department. It could be any number of, a referral from someone in your department. It can be any number of sources. How you go about doing it is typically you will send an email request to ask them if you can set up a time to meet with them. Usually it's because, again, you've been referred or you have somehow met this person. It's not just completely out of the blue, unless perhaps you're reaching out to an alum that you have found on LinkedIn, so there's an incentive for them to talk to you, or someone in a department at Berkeley, so that there's a better chance they're going to talk to you even if they don't necessarily know you. There's some connection. You're going to ask to set up a phone discussion or an in-person discussion. Typically no more than 30 minutes. In person could go a little longer. By phone, no more than 30 minutes. In terms of what are you going to talk about? First thing is, you have to come to that meeting prepared to share your background, your experiences, what it is you're looking for. So you have to come prepared to talk about you, as well as asking them questions about them. So it's not just walking in and saying, okay, tell me everything about you. They're going to ask you, so tell me about yourself. And you've got to have an answer, not just an agenda, but you have to have a very well thought out answer about who you are, what you do, what your background is, and then what you're hoping to get out of this discussion. And then you're going to create a set of questions to ask them about their career path, their experiences, their education, etc. At the end of that discussion, your goal should be perhaps to ask for a referral or another introduction, or there might be a chance to have a second meeting down the road if you feel that that's necessary. Typically, you want to ask for a referral. Who else should I talk to? Who else do you think would be a good person for me to connect with on this topic? At the end of that meeting, you want to do a follow-up thank you. Usually email's fine. Within 24 hours, send a thank you note. Very, very, very important. Too often, in culture that we live in, which is very casual, we assume that if we've said thank you at the end of the meeting, that's sufficient. It's not. You really set yourself apart if you send a follow-up thank you note. Email is fine. Handwritten, oh my God, they'll think you're the best thing since sliced bread. So I want to differentiate between the elevator pitch and the informational interview request, because they are different. In an elevator pitch, you have about 15 to 30 seconds, right, to share who you are and what you do. It's a sound bite. You know, it's kind of like the beautiful way that Judy said, oh, you know, I work in the library and I, you know, hire so many students a year to work in the library. I mean, she just very succinctly told me who she is and what she did. And then she explained, and I'm looking for XYZ here at this conference. It's very brief. And it's very relaxed, it's very casual. And sometimes you may ask the person, you know, may say, hey, you know, would love to follow up with you more. Why don't we exchange business cards? We can talk more about XYZ later. That would be great. It's very short. And an informational interview request, even if it's in person, it's a little bit longer because you're having a dialogue. You know, you're sharing your background. You're sharing what it is you're interested in, what it is you're looking for. It's a more in-depth discussion in the beginning, like just to get to the point where you can then ask that person, would you mind if I took you to lunch or we had coffee? Because I would love to learn more about your background in XYZ. So you share more of your background and you request time to discuss their career path and their experiences. You can also, let's say you've met someone here, you've had a good connection, you've gotten their card, they work in a field or a role that's interesting to you. You could then do a follow-up email and say, it was so great to meet you at the conference today. I would love to get together for lunch or coffee and learn more about what you do over in your department. You don't have to say, I would like to schedule an informational interview. That just, yeah, it's just a little bit too, you know. That just sounds a little bit too formal. You don't have to say that. But you can say, I would love to get together and sit down with you and learn more about your career path and your experience, because I am thinking about going in that direction. So once you are actually in the meeting, as I mentioned, five key things. First thing is to just kind of establish some kind of rapport, you know, to kind of kick things off, break the ice. Describe what you want to accomplish, whether it's by phone or in person, but you always want to lay out, here's what I'd like to talk about. Have your list of questions ready to go, so don't wing it. You know, you want to know exactly what it is you plan to ask that person. Ideally, if you can obtain referrals, that would be great. Most importantly, keep your eye on the time, as I'm doing now. You want to be able to summarize your key points and tell them what it is you'd like to do next. Of course, you want to thank them. There's an acronym for this, which is used here at Berkeley called PAL. And so I'm going to show you in the next, I don't have time to do the mock interview, but it's where you state the purpose of your meeting. You know, this is what I would like to talk about with you today. You describe the agenda and say, so, you know, during our talk today, I have 3 key things I want to cover. I would love to learn more about your career path. I'd love to learn more about the education that you chose, that you pursued in order to prepare you for this role. And then I'd love to know, you know, what it takes to be successful. Those could be your 3 key points. So you've set that up, the person knows what it is you want to talk about, and then that helps guide the conversation. And then you will want to be very explicit about saying, I know that your time is valuable. Would 30 minutes be enough time, or is that, you know, can you do 30 minutes of this phone call? And the person will say yes or no. Or if you're in person, say, you know I asked you for 30 minutes, does that still work for you? So just make sure that they're still okay with however much time you asked for, because they may say, no, I really only have 15. Then you need to adjust your agenda. And so your informational interview can be a rich source of discussion and learning and also connection. Because here's the thing, you're not just interviewing this person, you're building a relationship. And then hopefully that relationship will be fruitful for both of you. And you'll have the opportunity to build on it later and get to know them, and maybe they refer you out to other people. But you're building your network in a more meaningful way now. I encourage you all to share your business cards while you're here at this conference, as you're going about your day and you're getting to know each other, because you never know when you may be in a position to help each other with whatever your goals are. And so while we didn't get a chance to do the mock interview, I want you to keep in mind some of the key steps and tools that I shared with you, so that as you're going out and thinking about following up with your peers for discussions, you can use this approach. Ultimately, what I would say is your goal is to have fun. Have fun with this. think about it as an opportunity to get to know people, build some wonderful relationships right here at Berkeley, and use this as an opportunity to advance your career. So with that, I say thank you, and it's been wonderful, wonderful getting to know you all. We have a couple of minutes. If anybody has any last questions, where is my person? Yes, here. Any last questions or thoughts? Yes, over there.
I saw
Question
it
over there.
and I lost it. Oh.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Kemi Amin. I work up at the UC Botanical Garden, just up the hill. I had a question actually about the informational interview.
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to have a leave behind, like a resume for the person you're interviewing?
Yeah, you can bring your resume with you if you're doing it in person. And then what I would always do is ask. So I wouldn't just give it to them, but you can say, it depends on how the conversation flows, but you can say, would you like to see a copy of my resume? Would that be helpful for you? And they may say, no, that's okay, I don't need it. Or they may say, yes, sure, I would love it. So bring it and then have it there in case it would be helpful for them to have it. So, other questions, thoughts? So if anybody's feeling brave, what's the one thing you plan to do now as you go about the rest of the day? One takeaway that you think you might do. Yes.
I tend to be my name is LaShonda King. I'm an advisor in the Department of Music. I tend to have a lot of things on my mind and be very excited, as I'm sure you learned from my first one, but just to kind of be strategic. So kind of take some time to refocus. When we're talking about our goals, I'm like, I have so many. Wait, but you still do have to be focused. So it's nothing wrong with having passion and fire and being friendly, but you have to have a focus.
Yes.
So I'm going to work on bringing things in focus.
Excellent. So we have a hand here.
I saw the hand, but then I lost it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a lunch with my boss and the other bosses in my building.
Ooh, good
yeah,
for you.
I got 3 of them.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts or ideas or strategies you want to use that you've heard about or no? Yes, ma'am. Over. Yeah. Oops. Go around. Here's right here. Yeah, right there.
Hi, my name is Katie. What I'm going to do today is try to go sit with people at lunch and interact, because I tend to just go sit by myself and do my work. Like what I did when I got here this morning.
Exactly.
So I'm going to do that.
Congratulations. Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. And I'll see
Don't forget to finish your evals for me, guys.
Yes, please complete your evaluations. Thank you.
Okay.